Hello everybody, it's Fufu here, and today I'm bringing you a video all about Decidueye's newly released hidden ability, Long Reach. This is a really interesting ability. What it does is it means that any of your attacks that would make contact with the opponent no longer make contact. Why is this a good thing? Well, in Gen 7 there are tons of ways that you can punish the opponent for making contact with your Pokemon. Some examples are things like Spiky Shield, Rocky Helmet, and the abilities Iron Barbs and Rough Skin causing damage to any Pokemon that make contact. There are ways to cause status to the opponent if they make contact, like Baneful Bunker, Poison Points, Static, and also Flame Body. And also there are ways to reduce their stats with King Shield, or even trigger explosions with Turtonator's new Shell Trap move. There are other ways to do it as well. That wasn't an exhaustive list of contact related effects, but suffice to say, making contact with the opponent is something that you want to avoid if possible. So this is a cool new ability for Decidueye. It's a signature ability, nothing else gets it. Does Decidueye like this ability? Is it going to be running it? Well, it does have a number of contact moves that it likes to use. Things like Leaf Blade, U-Turn, Shadow Sneak, Sucker Punch are all moves that it likes to use, and these will no longer make contact. Interesting to point though that its signature move, Spirit Shackle, doesn't make contact, so it doesn't actually always make contact with the opponent. And also Decidueye can run very effective special attacking sets which will almost never make contact with the opponent unless you run Grass Knot, but it's got things like Leaf Storm, Energy Ball, Giga Drain, so you may well not be running that move either. It may well run Long Reach, but it may not, depending on the set. And actually its other ability, Overgrow, is very good for offensive sets, which is generally what Decidueye chooses to run. What this does is, when Decidueye's health is low, you get a boost to the power of your grass type moves, which is very nice if you are running grass type moves. The thing about Long Reach is, obviously you're reliant on the opponent to bring Pokemon with abilities or items or moves that punish contact moves, and if they don't bring any of that, Long Reach is completely wasted in any battle. Whereas Overgrow, as long as you've got a grass type move, there's a chance that it could be helpful. So I think overall, Overgrow may well be the more useful ability for Decidueye. What I wanted to do with this video is look at other Pokemon that might benefit more than Decidueye from the ability Long Reach. So these will be Pokemon that use contact moves a lot and that don't necessarily have great benefit from the abilities that they currently have. So let's get into it. First off, I wanted to consider users of the move Knockoff. This is a very good dark type move. It's got decent base power and it removes the opponent's item, which is an invaluable effect. Now, Pokemon that get access to this move generally like to spam it quite a lot, which means they'll make quite a lot of contact with the opponent. So I considered Knockoff users, and one of the best ones out there is Weavile, who I think is a great candidate for Long Reach. It does like to go for the knockoff. Its coverage moves in Icicle Crash and Ice Shard aren't contact moves, but it does sometimes run things like Low Kick, which is a contact move, so it could benefit from that for other moves that it does use. But knockoff is the main move that it likes to use a lot, so that will be really good at not making contact with that move. It's important to note that Weavile is relatively frail. It's weak to Stealth Rock, so it might be losing health when it comes into battle, and also it likes to sometimes run the Life Orb item, which will be chipping away at its own HP. So all of this means that Weavile will be taking more damage, and you want to minimize that as much as possible. So not hitting things with Iron Barbs and Rough Skin with contact moves is really in Weavile's favor. So those are reasons why Long Reach will be useful. Now, how does it compare to its current abilities? Weavile gets the Pressure ability, which is a good ability if it's on a bulky Pokemon where you're able to stall out the opponent's PP. What it does is it means the opponent uses 2 PP instead of 1 PP every time it uses a move that targets your Pokemon. But this isn't particularly useful for Weavile because it is frail, it's not able to take many hits from the opponent, so the effect of Pressure is not going to be that great. The other ability that it could run is Pickpocket. This allows Weavile to steal opponents' items, but the issue is it's an offensive Pokemon. It likes to hold items itself, so it never will have an empty item slot to be able to steal the opponent's items. So neither of its abilities are working in its favour too much at the moment, and it could definitely benefit from that Long Reach ability. It would give Weavile a lot more utility than its current abilities. So I think that Weavile is a great candidate for Long Reach. Now, does it make sense in terms of its design and how Weavile functions? I think that On the surface, it doesn't work like Decidueye. Decidueye gets Long Reach because it's an archer, it can stand far away and use those physical moves against the opponent. Weavile is not an archer, it can't do that. But we have seen in the anime and in things, Sneasel and Weavile have retractable claws. If you have a Weavile with very long retractable claws, it could keep its body well away from the opponent's spikes or poison points while it attacks them with its very long claws. So I think Long Reach could potentially make sense with Weavile here, and therefore this is the first Pokemon that I'm going to say probably would benefit a lot more than Decidueye from the Long Reach ability. So there we go. The next thing I thought about was multi-hit moves. These are moves that hit the opponent multiple times in one turn, and for some of them they are contact moves, for example Tail Slap with Ambipom or Cinccino. These hit multiple times in one turn, you make multiple contact in one turn, and this could be really detrimental for the user. So I don't know if you've ever been in this position, but I definitely have, where I've used Tail Slap with Cinccino, it's gone into a Rocky Helmet Pokemon, and my Cinccino has lost over half of its health just from going from Tail Slap, which hit 5 times in one turn. That was a very painful thing to witness, Cinccino's HP just dropping, and for Ambipom it's potentially even worse because it also gets Fake Out, and almost all of its best moves are contact moves. So these two are Pokemon that definitely make a lot of contact, but the issue is their abilities in Skill Link and in Technician actually boost the power of their moves significantly and would probably always be run over Long Reach. They're very useful. If you take away the Skill Link ability, Tail Slap won't even be hitting that frequently anyway, so Long Reach will have less of a protective effect anyway. So I think these two, maybe Long Reach isn't the best idea. Despite Ambipom potentially having a really good reasoning for it, it's got a very long tail so it can keep its body well away from the opponent, and it's got really long reach because its tails are so long and its hands are so big. So I think that would make sense, but I still think that Skill Link or Technician would be more helpful for Ambipom. But something that has a multi-hit move that would potentially benefit from this ability, I think it's a bit of left field, but I quite like the idea, and that is Klinklang. This is a Pokemon that I quite like because it's just a really neat design. It's relatively bulky and it's got that great setup move in Shift Gear. It boosts its speed and its attack, but it does rely on the Gear Grind move. It's a powerful Steel type move. It's a really good move, but it does make contact with the opponent twice in one turn. And if you're going up against something like a Druddigon with a Rocky Helmet, that is a lot of recoil damage that you're taking, which is not good for this Pokemon, especially if it's running a substitute set, which is taking away some of its HP to start with. Not something that you want to run into. I think that this guy would really appreciate from the Long Reach. Its coverage moves, it gets Return, it gets Wild Charge, they make contact too, so it would be making quite a lot of contact with the opponent. And its current abilities, so it gets Minus, which is not really useful at all because this thing isn't a special attacker, and you probably wouldn't be seeing that used ever. Its other ability is Clear Body, which can be very useful because it means you don't have to worry about the opponent's Intimidate, you don't have to worry about Sticky Web. But again, both of these are relatively situational. Clear Body is definitely useful, but I definitely think that there would be an argument for using Long Reach because Clear Body, you worry about your opponent bringing an Intimidate Pokemon. Long Reach, you worry about your opponent bringing Iron Barbs, Rough Skin, Poison Point, Static. There is a ton of abilities that they could bring with that. So actually, it might be more likely that you will face something with an ability that punishes contact. Therefore, Long Reach could arguably be more useful on a Klinklang set than Clear Body. Therefore, I think this guy would be a good thing. It makes a lot of contact, and its current ability, Clear Body, is potentially not as useful as Long Reach. It could be more useful, but it depends on the situation. Now, does it make sense for this Pokemon to get Long Reach? I think this one's a bit more of a push than Weavile, but if you stretch your imagination, it could fire out some gears to do its attacks. So I think it could potentially work, but you really have to imagine it a bit more. But I think it would benefit more than Decidueye from the Long Reach ability. The final thing that I wanted to consider were Pokemon that use Recoil Moves. These are Pokemon that are taking recoil damage already, so hitting one of the Pokemon with like Iron Barbs or Rough Skin with a contact recoil move would be really devastating for their HP bar, not something that you like to see. And the one that I wanted to consider most here really was going to be Infernape, and that's because it has tons of contact moves that it uses. It's relatively frail, so it doesn't want its HP to drop any more than it has to, and it loves to use that Flare Blitz recoil move. So some of the other contact moves that it uses, it could use Fake Out, it could use U-Turn, could use some punching moves as well. Pretty much all of the moves that a physical Infernape would like to use, they will make contact. And it's also important to note that, so you've got Flare Blitz that causes recoil damage, you might be getting more recoil from a Rocky Helmet, but even its close combat stab attack reduces its defenses, and if you're taking chip damage from Rocky Helmet, and you're taking reduced defenses, it makes Infernape very, very vulnerable. So I think the Infernape, it definitely checks the makes a lot of contact box. Does it check also the other abilities not as good as Long Reach box? Well, its other abilities are actually quite usable. It depends on the set, but you could run an Iron Fist Infernape if you're running lots of punching moves like Mach Punch and Thunder Punch. You've also got Fire Punch and Drain Punch if you want to, but generally these aren't as powerful as Infernape's moves like Close Combat and Flare Blitz, and U-Turn will almost always be on this set too. Its last move, it depends what you want to run. Thunder Punch is quite nice for water types, in which case Iron Fist could be more useful than Long Reach, but if you don't have any punching moves, Iron Fist is completely useless, so you'd want to be looking for another ability. Now, one of those other abilities could be Blaze, which boosts fire type moves when your HP is low. This could definitely be useful, especially if you're using a Flare Blitz set. But again, it's quite situational. You need to get down to that amount of HP for it to be doing anything. Long Reach, I think there is definitely an argument for it being useful for Infernape, especially if you know that you're going to be going up against things like, for example, Ferrothorn. Obviously, you want to be hitting that with Infernape's super effective moves, but you'd worry about taking too much recoil. So in that instance, Long Reach might be the ability that you want to go for. Does it make sense for a monkey to get Long Reach? I think this one is the hardest one to defend. I don't think that Infernape really looks like a Long Reach Pokemon. We saw a different monkey, Ambipom. I think it would make a lot more sense because its design is based around hands and reaching with its tails, whereas this, I don't know. I think that it would be, I don't think we'd ever see Infernape getting this ability, but I do think that it would benefit more than Decidueye from having this ability. So those are just some examples of Pokemon that I think would benefit a lot from the Long Reach ability. I do think that Weavile would be the best example here. I'd love to see Weavile get a more useful ability, and I think Long Reach would be a really cool one to see, but that's probably never going to happen. This is just all theory. I'd be really interested to hear what you think about the Long Reach ability, how useful you think it is for Decidueye or for other Pokemon, and what do you think about my suggestions. That is going to be all for today. If you enjoy this kind of video, please leave a like. But all that's left to be said is I've been Fufu, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.